Welcome to Let's Play the News, the series where we break down the news of the day, accompanied by footage of some of your favorite games. So today on our first edition of Let's Play the News, I want to talk about healthcare. More specifically, the American Healthcare Act, or Trumpcare, or Romneycare, if you want to call it. And I'm going to be taking a look at a New York Times article, opinion piece by the editorial board called Trading Healthcare for the Poor for Tax Cuts for the Rich. But first, I'm going to talk about what we're seeing right now. Right now, I'm playing Mass Effect. I've had this game for a while and just have not played it, have not had an excuse to play it. I recently picked it up in anticipation for Mass Effect Andromeda, and this is just my first time through the game, and I am absolutely loving it. Like, it is so much fun. So yeah, I can't believe I have not yet played any entry in the Mass Effect series, and I doubt I'm going to squeeze in all three games by the time Mass Effect Andromeda comes out, but I would like to at least have some start on the series. So my commander, Shepard, is actually kind of an asshole. I guess you'll see in the character creation screen, I gave him handlebar mustache, and he kind of looks a little bit gross. But I'm beginning to realize that, early Xbox 360 game, pretty much all the characters look a little bit gross. But that's okay. He's just like hashtag renegade for life, and he does what he needs to do to get the job done. And multiple people, NPCs during the playthrough, have introduced me as the guy who does everything or anything to get the job done. And I'm just like having so much fun just being like an asshole to as many people as possible. I don't know how that's going to work out for me, because, in real life, I kind of like to be a little bit more sympathetic towards people. But just in terms of the game, it's just really a lot of fun, just like being an asshole for absolutely no reason. I don't know if I'm going to continue that trend. It might get a little bit boring. But, I will definitely, I promise you, once the novelty wears off, I will start making smarter decisions, perhaps. Right now, I'm just having a good time, and excuse if I'm, not playing the game the way you would want to play it. I'm really just looking to explore and have a good time. So, like I said, I'm going to be taking a look at New York Times op-ed titled Trading Healthcare for the Poor for Tax Cuts for the Rich, and it's just an opinion piece on Trumpcare, Ryancare, whatever you want to call it. All right. So much for President Trump's plan of insurance for everybody, the article says. The Congressional Budget Office said on Monday that the next year, 14 million fewer Americans will have insurance if the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, is repealed and replaced on the terms the president is seeking. That tally would rise to 21 million in 2020 and 24 million in 2016. By then, the total number of uninsured Americans would reach 52 million. And for what? To give a giant tax cut to the wealthiest Americans? According to the CBO, the loss of the health care coverage under the Republican plan stems largely from gutting Medicaid for low-income Americans, even though Trump has said he would not cut Medicaid. And this is true. He said back in the campaign that he was the first Republican to say he would not cut Medicaid. And he made a point about that on Twitter back in 2015, I believe. But continuing on, coverage would also be lost in part because insurance would become unaffordable for millions as subsidies are withdrawn, despite Trump's claim that coverage would become much less expensive and much better. Older people would be hit hard. The Republican plan repeals the penalty for not buying insurance, which, I think I think is pretty good. That was the big controversial thing with Obamacare. That was why it was brought to the Supreme Court back in 2012, I think. Yeah, that was the thing that a lot of people had a problem with, because it was essentially introducing a new tax, and the Supreme Court said in their decision that the government is allowed to impose new taxes on people. Yeah, the Republicans' plan repeals the penalty for not buying insurance. One predictable result of this change is that premiums will rise as younger, healthier people refuse to buy insurance. I'm young. I don't, health insurance isn't the first thing I think of as like spending what I'm going to do with my money, but it is important. To hold down the cost of average premiums, the proposal would allow insurers to charge 5 times more for older enrollees than younger ones, rather than 3 times as permitted under Obamacare. The outcome would be reduced premiums for young adults, essentially paid for by charging substantially higher premiums for older people, and higher deductibles and other cost sharing for everyone. At the same time, the plan provides a $600 billion tax cut over 10 years for wealthy Americans, because they would no longer be subject to the taxes that pay for the healthcare subsidies. When the tax cuts for the rich and the spending cuts to Medicare are combined, they would result in deficit reduction of $337 billion by 2026, which is good, I think. That's a small fraction of the national debt in exchange for an enormous amount of human misery. Trump administration officials and congressional Republicans knew the CBO report would be devastating, so last week they launched a preemptive attack on the agency, disparaging its professionalism and findings. You can really determine the credibility of the Congressional Budget Office. They are, I believe, under the Congressional Committee of Ways and Means, so you can just look into that for yourself to determine whether or not what they have to say in this in the Trump era really has any credibility. We know that they're looking to discredit the president at every turn. Congress does not like the president. Establishment folks do not typically like his ideas or his supporters, because it changes the status quo. It makes things more difficult for them. Their insults were an impressive display of staying on message for an administration and party that has descended into infighting over the elements of the repeal plan. This might have been expected, yet in the past, President Trump himself has tweeted CBO findings to attack President Obama on economic growth, tax cuts, employment, and other issues. We disagree strenuously with the report that was put out, Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price said on Monday. It's just not believable. Well, whether Mr. Price wants to believe it or not, the numbers are the numbers. The CBO has called it as it sees it, and the picture is clear. Trumpcare would throw millions of Americans off their health coverage, and no amount of spin or scorn for the CBO can alter that reality. The president tweeted Monday, quote, Obamacare is imploding. It is a disaster, and 2017 will be the worst year yet by far. Republicans will come together and save the day. That's actually not really likely to happen. I'm looking on Breitbart. Grassroots conservatives to rally against Ryanair. Freedom Works, after promising full repeal, now GOP backs down. GOP leaders double down on Ryan bill after harsh CBO score. Republicans do not like this. Democrats do not like this. This bill has received so much criticism. It's unbelievable. Well, no, it's actually quite believable, because healthcare has just always been a controversial topic. Back in 2010, you had every conservative on Fox News, talk radio, just bashing the Affordable Care Act. And it is still one of the most controversial things the government has passed in recent history. Do I think the bill is going to be passed? It's really hard to say. Congressional Republicans, conservative Republicans, libertarian Republicans, kind of led by Rand Paul, are saying that they want nothing to do with this. It's a sponsored legislation by the likes of Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, who are maybe seen as more moderate Republicans. The bill itself is being introduced, I heard, as a budget bill, so it's not going to require a 60-vote supermajority. It's just a simple majority would do in passing it. And from what I also understand, it is not a full repeal of Obamacare, which is what was promised, which is what would have gotten congressmen, senators like Rand Paul on board with this. They wanted a full scale repeal of Obamacare. Rand Paul has even come out and called this Obamacare light. Critics on the Democratic side have called it Obamacare 0.5. So it's not liked by anybody. I have seen some things that have said House Speaker Paul Ryan and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell are essentially bought by big health insurers. So they're going to protect their guys. I don't know if that's legitimate or if it's just kind of a little bit cynicalism coming from the other side. But, we do know that a lot of people in Congress are bought by big corporations, unfortunately, and they are expected to follow through with what they ultimately want if they hope to stay in power in Washington, D.C. One of the cool things about Trump, when he was coming into the limelight, was he already had all his money. He didn't need to be bought. He wasn't a candidate who was taking money from big corporations so he would be their president. He was going to be a president for the American people, and that was one of the things I thought was so appealing about him. But what do I think of the American Health Care Act after taking a closer look into it? I have known people who are signed up for Obamacare. And first of all, Obamacare isn't it's not like you get a card in the mail that says Obamacare and that's your, free card to go charge for your surgeries, your medications, doctor's visits. I mean, it's not like that. Obamacare is essentially like a huge expansion of Medicaid, and also I think raising the bar for who can apply for Medicaid as far as income level. I think it makes that pool of people, it's a much larger pool of people from before Obamacare. And my friends on Obamacare have said things like, well, I can't work more than 48 hours a week, or I can't exceed this much threshold of income because then I risk losing my health care. And, to me, that makes zero sense, because in life, what you want to do is you want to accumulate as much money as possible. You want to build a future for yourself and for a family, should you decide to have one. I think the American Health Care Act kind of incentivizes work. It kind of incentivizes establishing yourself and working hard to achieve certain goals. I think a lot of with these entitlement programs, it makes it okay for you to just kind of skate by on the bare minimum. You don't grow as a person. You never advance your station in life. You're kind of just in this rut, just either like skating just below and above the poverty line for the rest of your life. And I don't know. I don't think that's a way to live. I don't think that's a good thing. What the founders would have wanted for the people of America. Just kind of living in that gray area in life. So personally, I like that I can work and that I will have money at the end of the year set aside to purchase healthcare if I wanted to from a doctor that I want, not a doctor that the government imposes on me. I appreciate that it gives me more freedom to do what I want with my money. I like tax cuts. I like tax cuts, but then I understand like there are people out there who might just, that this is just going to kill. This is just going to kill. And I understand that, and I feel their pain. But I disagree with the CBO's findings. I don't really see, like, we're not giving up. One of the big criticism coming from the right is that we're actually not giving up Obamacare. So I don't understand why it's saying that 24 million people by 2026 are going to be left without insurance. Maybe someone can explain that to me. That would be great. But, I just don't see those people being left behind. I don't see Medicaid being cut by this. I don't see Medicare for the elderly changing that much. I just see this as a new way for young professionals like myself to have just a little bit more control over their finances, their money, and their life. And, I like that. I really do. I understand that it's the opposition's job to just go after the president wherever and whenever they can. I've always disagreed with that. I think there are times when the opposition has had a place in the society, but in recent years, it's just like the talking points almost come out like concurrently with the new policy. So you kind of have the opposition on par with the leadership of this country. It's like 1-to-1. It's like you have the plan and it's introduced, and then not like 10 seconds later, you have the opposition's talking points on like, okay, well, this is why this plan sucks. This is why we should not do this. And that's their job. You have so many paid strategists to just go after this, just to dissect everything that comes out of the administration just because it's not their guy. It's not their guy. And I didn't like it when they did it to Obama. I think they had reason to go after Obama on certain points, but I did not like it when the Republicans, January 20th, 2009, they were on the attack. The second he took the oath of office, Obama was the worst president. Obama is the worst president America has ever seen. And, that wasn't fair. That wasn't fair for them to do. And unfortunately, it's just gotten worse and worse. I really appreciate the statement that Nancy Pelosi put out on the American Health Care Act, where she said something like, it's very important for members of Congress and the American people to read the bill before it's voted on. And that's such a beautiful contrast to 2010 when she said something along the lines of, we have to pass it in order to find out what's in it, which is just unbelievable. So I'm going to make a prediction right now, and I'm going to say that it's going to be shot down. Whether or not that's cool with me, it doesn't really bother me. I think, it's a great idea. I think the execution and the marketing of it was very poor. I think it's kind of like how the travel ban was back in the earlier weeks of the administration. It was just rolled out in kind of a very awkward way, and I understand that the Trump administration doesn't have much maneuverability with the media and with Congress itself. His capital with them is very, very low. Basically, anything he puts out there is going to be hammered hard by Washington Post, CNN, New York Times, which I was just reading from. And he's got very low political capital among the stalwarts of his own party. Like I said, Rand Paul, conservative libertarian wing of the party, they're not going for this. Rand Paul has already said he's voting no on this, unless it's a repeal, full-scale repeal of Obamacare. He's voting no, and many are with him. So I don't even think, what do they have, like, in the Senate, what do they have, like 58, 59 seats? I don't think they're going to get 50. I really don't think they're going to get 50. It might pass in the House. Don't think it's going to pass in the Senate. And I don't see this getting passed before summertime, like the president already wants. He said he wants to go from healthcare, and then he wants to move from that to tax reform by summertime. I just don't see it happening. But I'd like to know what you guys think about the American Health Care Act. Tell me where I'm wrong, definitely, in the comments below. Tell me where I'm wrong about this 24 million being left off. 14 million this year, 24 million being left off, being left uninsured by this plan. I'd love to discuss it. If you could point me out where I'm wrong, I would love to discuss it. That's it for this edition of Let's Play the News. I'm Ry, and I will talk to you guys next time.